I am Dr. Vivian Cole, a specialist in male performance and aging, and I need to address a specific moment of panic that is entirely biological, completely normal, and entirely fixable. I am talking about the moment the request for round 2 happens and your body simply does not respond the way it did when you were 30. There is an intense, unspoken anxiety among men over 50 when intimacy extends past the first encounter. I see this constantly in my clinic. Men who perform perfectly well initially, but experience a profound, rapid drop in vascular response immediately afterward. They feel a sense of physiological betrayal. They assume their testosterone has crashed, or that age has simply shut the system down. But what is actually happening in that critical 60-second window is a very specific enzymatic block. By the time we finish this discussion, you will understand exactly why your vascular system is temporarily locking you out, and I'm going to show you a specific, immediate protocol to manually force that refractory period to collapse and restore localized blood flow. The core issue we need to dismantle is not your desire, and it is not your baseline testosterone. The barrier is an enzyme called PDE5 and a physiological phenomenon known as the refractory period. Immediately after climax, your brain floods your system with prolactin and serotonin, while simultaneously triggering a massive spike in PDE5 within the smooth muscle of your pelvic floor. This enzyme acts as a vascular brake system. Its primary job is to break down cyclic GMP, the molecule responsible for keeping blood vessels dilated, and force the tissue back to a flaccid state. When you were 25, your body could clear that PDE5 spike in minutes. But as systemic inflammation accumulates and natural nitric oxide production slows down with age, that enzymatic brake gets stuck in the on position. The conventional mistake men make here is either attempting to push through the physical unresponsiveness with pure willpower, which only increases performance anxiety and spikes cortisol, or immediately reaching for a synthetic medication right in the moment. The problem with taking a synthetic PDE5 inhibitor after the fact is that it takes 30 to 60 minutes to absorb and activate, entirely ruining the spontaneity and creating a stressful environment. You are trying to treat an acute, localized vascular block with a delayed systemic chemical. To bypass this extended refractory period and restore blood flow naturally, you must intervene exactly in that 60-second window with targeted physiological actions that force vasodilation and downregulate the nervous system's stop signal. The first intervention is not a supplement, but a hard reset of your autonomic nervous system. The moment the first encounter ends, your sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight pathway, often spikes due to the physical exertion and the subconscious performance pressure of what comes next. This sympathetic spike actively constricts peripheral blood vessels. To counter this instantly, you must engage the parasympathetic nervous system through a specific breathing pattern. The protocol is a 4 to 7, 8 cadence. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, and forcefully exhale for 8 seconds. You repeat this for exactly 60 seconds. This is not meditation, it is a mechanical lever. By extending the exhale, you manually slow your heart rate, lower immediate cortisol production, and force the smooth muscle in your arterial walls to begin relaxing. You are essentially telling your brain that the exertion is over and it is safe to redirect blood flow away from the major muscle groups and back to the pelvic region. The second immediate action involves mechanical temperature manipulation. When men experience a prolonged refractory period, there is often localized venous pooling. Deoxygenated blood gets trapped in the pelvic floor, increasing pressure and preventing fresh, oxygen-rich arterial blood from entering. To break the stagnation, you need a rapid thermal contrast. If the environment allows applying a cold stimulus, a cold towel, or even briefly stepping into a cool shower, to the lower abdomen and inner thighs for just 20 to 30 seconds causes a sudden vasoconstriction. The moment that cold stimulus is removed, the body responds with reactive hyperemia, a massive compensatory rush of fresh, highly oxygenated arterial blood back into the region. This sudden surge physically flushes out the stagnant blood and delivers a concentrated dose of whatever endogenous nitric oxide your body is currently producing, priming the tissue for a secondary response. If this clinical breakdown of what is actually happening in your body is providing clarity, and you want to continue learning how to bypass these age-related vascular blocks, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a like. It ensures this specific, targeted medical information reaches other men who are dealing with this exact same silent frustration. The third mechanism involves preloading your system with a specific amino acid precursor so that it is available precisely when you need that secondary surge. Your endothelial cells require L-arginine to synthesize nitric oxide. However, supplementing with oral L-arginine is highly inefficient because your liver destroys most of it before it ever reaches your bloodstream. The clinical workaround is L-citrulline. L-citrulline bypasses the liver entirely, travels to the kidneys, and is systematically converted into L-arginine right at the cellular level, creating a sustained, slow-release pool of nitric oxide precursors. By incorporating a high-quality L-citrulline source into your daily routine, not right before intimacy, but consistently every morning, you ensure that when you execute the breathing protocol and the thermal reset, your endothelial cells actually have the raw materials required to generate the nitric oxide needed to override the PDE5 enzyme and restore blood flow for a second round. For years, my approach to male performance was strictly behavioral. I focused entirely on cardiovascular conditioning, sleep architecture, and stress management. I viewed the supplement industry with intense skepticism, believing that if a man optimized his lifestyle, his vascular system would naturally compensate. I actively discouraged my patients from relying on pills or powders and convinced it was mostly placebo and clever marketing. But as I began working with older demographics, I saw a persistent pattern. I had patients, specifically men between 60 and 68, who were incredibly fit. Their labs looked pristine, yet they were still hitting an absolute vascular wall after their first encounter. The refractory period remained stubbornly long. Their bodies simply lacked the biological leverage to overcome the age-related accumulation of the PDE5 enzyme. I realized my rigid adherence to lifestyle-only interventions was doing them a disservice. I returned to the clinical data to find a targeted, evidence-based compound that could provide that necessary leverage. The protocol I eventually integrated centers on a specific botanical compound, epimedium. Now, epimedium is critical because it contains a highly active molecule called icariin. Icariin functions as a natural PDE5 inhibitor. It works on the exact same enzymatic pathway as the synthetic medications, but without the intense systemic side effects. It gently blocks the enzyme that breaks down the vasodilation signal. Alongside epimedium, the formulation includes alpha-lipoic acid, a potent antioxidant that works specifically on the peripheral vascular system, reducing the localized inflammation that often compromises circulation in the erectile tissue. When I introduced this precise combination to my patients, the change was profound. I watched men in their mid-60s, who had previously needed a full 24 hours to recover, report a return of responsive, localized blood flow within 30 to 40 minutes, allowing them to comfortably engage in that second encounter. This is not about forcing an unnatural response. It is about providing the precise biochemical support your system needs to clear the enzymatic block efficiently. Because I believe in complete transparency and clinical rigor, I have linked the exact formulation I recommend, the one that passed my own stringent safety and efficacy checks, in the pinned comment below, so you can review the specific concentrations yourself. It is crucial to understand that ignoring a dramatically extended refractory period is ignoring a broader vascular warning. The microscopic vessels that supply your pelvic floor are the first to show signs of endothelial dysfunction. When that post-encounter recovery time starts stretching from minutes to hours and eventually to days, it is not just an inconvenience. It is a clear clinical indicator that your systemic nitric oxide production is failing and your arterial elasticity is declining. In my practice, I constantly remind men that vitality is a holistic system. The same vascular stiffness that prevents a quick recovery in the bedroom is the exact same stiffness that eventually forces the heart to work harder to pump blood throughout the body. When you address the refractory period by restoring endothelial health and clearing that enzymatic block, you are simultaneously protecting your long-term cardiovascular function. Restoring your ability to perform consistently requires attacking the physiological block directly, manually resetting the nervous system, forcing localized blood flow, and ensuring your body has the biochemical support to inhibit the PDE5 enzyme. You cannot rely on willpower to overcome a vascular lock. Let me know in the comments, have you noticed your recovery time extending significantly over the last few years? And what have you tried to do about it? The vascular tissue in your body has an incredible capacity for regeneration, but it requires consistent, targeted intervention. That plasticity, the ability of your arteries to regain their youthful elasticity, diminishes significantly as you move through your 60s. The nutritional protocol and the physiological actions we discussed are designed to intervene while that tissue is still responsive. You can evaluate the specific formulation and its clinical mechanism through the link in the pinned comment. Do not let a temporary enzymatic block dictate your confidence when your biology simply needs the correct, targeted support to restore its natural function.